I'm going to attempt to do this video again. Top 10 running backs going into the 2017 NFL season. Now, I'm going to make it a little bit shorter than the last video I made. The last video was about 25 minutes, so I'm going to try to make this one a little shorter. I apologize if I talk really fast. It's just, I just want to get the video done and over with because YouTube took my other one down, and I'm very, very upset. So I'm going to try to include one rookie on the list, and he's going to be at number 10. And then, remember, this is completely my opinion. This is not anything that is different. This is just, I'm not saying that this is the best running backs in the game. This is just my top 10 running backs going into the new season. Okay. Number 10, we have Leonard Fournette. Jacksonville Jaguars are up and coming. I really, really like them this year, especially with all the additions in the draft. Chris Ivory is being hurt. TJ Yeldon had a down year, so I have Fournette going around 1,200 yards and around 6 touchdowns for total this year. I like him. He's a power runner. I don't watch much college football, but from what I did see at LSU, he's a monster running back. So, at number 9, we have my boy LeSean McCoy. I love LeSean McCoy. He's one of the best running backs in the game ever since he came into the league, and we drafted him. I believe last year he had 1,267 yards and 13 touchdowns. That's with injury. So with injury, McCoy still had so many yards, and with a monster backup like Mike Gillislee to fill in for him, he's just a very good running back. I have him around 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns this year. I think that lingering foot injury and leg injury that he has, I think he has a hamstring injury, is just going to keep those yards from going any higher than they are. But the touchdowns are there because they're not a pass-heavy offense. They don't really have much to work with besides Sammy Watkins and newly addition Zay Jones. So next up, we have Todd Gurley. I love Todd Gurley. Dude had a monster year. 2015, he had 1,100 yards and 10 TDs. Obviously, last year, he had a very, very downhill because Los Angeles is a horrible place to play for. Everything about them is shutting down. This year, I have him in a resurgence year, 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. I feel like that as long as you just keep feeding him the ball, he'll just keep going. He's a phenomenal runner. He's a fantastic fantasy owner, and it sucks that he had such a cruddy sophomore year. So, at number 7, we have one of my favorite dudes to watch in Devonta Freeman. He had 1,079 yards and 11 touchdowns last year. I really, really love him. And I love his backup in Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman is fantastic. I think if Tevin Coleman wasn't there, Devonta Freeman would have so many more yards. And a lot of those touchdowns went up because Tevin Coleman got injured and he was out for a lot of the year. So I have Devonta Freeman going for 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns this year. So I think if Tevin Coleman comes back and he is healthy, he's going to get a lot of the carries taken away. But Devonta Freeman is a monster. He can run north to south. He's very, very good on sweep routes. He's very, very good at reading defenses, so I really, really love him. At number 6, I have my boy Melvin Gordon, who is just an absolute animal for the San Diego Chargers. Last year, he only had 997 and 10 touchdowns, and that's with the injury that he suffered at the end of the year. So he was just going up. He could have just kept going up from there. I mean, the way he was a fantasy killer for us last year. Every single week when somebody played Melvin Gordon, they were just toasting the other opponent. Me and my commissioner were like, oh my God, this dude is just constantly on the leaderboards. How come? And then he got hurt. I feel like he would have had upwards of 1,300 yards this year if he would have just if he didn't get injured. This year I have him going for 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns. I think with Mike Williams being there, I feel like Phillip Rivers is going to want to throw a lot more this year. So I believe Melvin Gordon will get those opportunities, and he will get those 1, 2, 3 yard goal line stances. So I really do love Melvin Gordon. He's on the uprise. He's going to be one of the better running backs in the years to come as long as he stays healthy. Of course, at number 5, I have to include a Philadelphia Eagle. That's how it has to be. LeGarrette Blount, who had 1,161 yards and 18 touchdowns last year for the New England Patriots. Yes, obviously, New England's a perfect offense, and he you know what I mean, is a situational character and situational player, and everyone's like, oh, he's on New England's offense, he's not going to do good in Philadelphia's offense. And I'm like, well, according to Pro Football Focus, we have the best O-line going into this year, which I don't agree with due to Jason Kelsey, but I have LeGarrette Blount going for 1,250 yards and 15 touchdowns. I feel like the red zone is where the Eagles struggle every single year. It's been so long since we had a good positive year for the red zone target. So I feel like we will use LeGarrette Blount in that situation. I don't see him having that many yards because of Sproles and all the running backs we have, especially with the additions to Pumphrey. Who knows what Ryan Matthews is going to do? Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith, all those additions for Carson Wentz. He's a very, very good. I feel like Blunt's going to be a great blocker this year. I'm not including any receiving yards or receiving touchdowns. This is just pure rushing yards. So, at number 4, I have DeMarco Murray, 1,287 yards last year and 9 touchdowns for Tennessee's line. I personally believe that Tennessee has the best offensive line in the game, followed by Dallas, then Oakland, and then Philadelphia. DeMarco Murray was an animal when he played for the Cowboys, and he could have been so good for the Eagles if Chip Kelly used him correctly. And now he's going to go to a resurging and a on-the-rise team like the Titans, and he's going to end up with 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns this year. I believe that with all the new additions, I feel like Marcus Mariota is going to scramble a lot for touchdowns this year, especially after that leg injury he had last year. I really think that he's going to be on the rise and get more rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. DeMarco Murray is going to be there very, very. A lot of people says he doesn't block, and a lot of people says he doesn't want to help anybody else. But I feel like when the situation comes, 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns is really going to help. But I do feel like he's the number 4 running back because he's such a threat. There's going to be so many defenses that are like, okay, we have to put 2 linebackers. Okay, we have to double block here. DeMarco Murray is a threat, and Marcus Mariota also has Delaney Walker, who is an absolute animal. So at number 3, I hate putting him on the list, but Ezekiel Elliott had a monster year, 1,631 yards and 15 touchdowns behind the second best offensive line in football. Ezekiel Elliott, I don't like putting second-year guys on these things, but he was so good for the Cowboys last year that it was on. He slayed the East last year, and it's out of control. Broke so many records. Okay, he's a great runner behind an offensive line like that. It's really. I mean, I hate when people say, well, if you put anybody behind that line, it's a big difference. Okay, yes, Derek McFadden was behind the line. He had a good year too. If you put Ezekiel Elliott on the Browns, he's not going to have as many yards. It might be true, but unfortunately, he's on the Cowboys, and this is what we're dealing with. So I have him going for 1,400 yards and 10 TDs. I have him going down a little bit this year. I don't have him going up. I know there's a lot of injuries on the offensive line this year for them. So pretty much that's what I have for Ezekiel Elliott. That's all I'm going to talk about because I don't want to talk about him that much. Next up, we have David Johnson. About the only good thing the Arizona Cardinals have offensively. In my opinion, 1239 last year and 16 touchdowns. This guy is a monster from the running standpoint and the catching standpoint. He can catch out of the backfield so very well. I mean, he had so many all-purpose yards. It's out of control how crazy this guy did, and he's only going to go up from there. I feel like Arizona's in a win-now mode. Carson Palmer's getting a little bit older. You know what I mean? That defense is on the rise. So I have him going upwards of around 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns. He's just going to still keep going. And if he has all-purpose yards, that total can go up to like 2,000 and probably 20-plus touchdowns. So I really like David Johnson. I love him. He's a fantastic runner. I'd kill to have him on my team. But at number 1, we have the best running back in the game, who I personally think is the best running back in the NFL right now, and that's LeVeon Bell. Okay, last year's numbers, 1,268, 7 touchdowns. Obviously, that seems a little weird to be at number 1. Suspended for the first 4 games. I feel like if he was there the first 4 games, that would have been upwards of 1,500 yards. 1,500 yards probably, and probably like 14, 15 touchdowns. LeVeon Bell is an animal. He is an absolute animal. To watch him play is insane. I haven't seen a guy play like him in so long. I mean, I wasn't really old enough to watch Barry Sanders play, but when I sit there and watch Barry Sanders, what he did, and I grew up watching, when I watched Marshall Faulk play, those are the type of players that like change the game. And LeVeon Bell is going to change the game. He sits behind that line so long before he can create holes by just standing there and just waiting. I mean, if you're going to watch any Le'Veon Bell game performance from last year, I highly recommend watching him desecrate the Buffalo Bills last year in Buffalo. I mean, it was a storm. It was snowing. It was blowing, and Le'Veon Bell had like 200 yards, like the dude is an absolute monster. I have him going for 1,700 yards and 16 plus touchdowns. I feel like Pittsburgh is, Big Ben's getting a little older. Pittsburgh. Martavius Bryant is probably going to be back this year. Antonio Brown is obviously good. I love Pittsburgh's O-line, especially Alejandro Villanueva. I love him. He's fantastic. But the things that the openings and lanes that Le'Veon Bell can create are out of control. And I feel like the fact that the NFL put Ezekiel Elliott above him in their top 10 is out of control. I mean, how can you... Ezekiel Elliott's in his second year, and Le'Veon Bell is in, third or fourth year, I believe? I don't know. But to be an established runner like that, like Le'Veon Bell is an absolute tank and monster, and I would kill for him. It's contract year, I believe, next year for him, so there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to want him, and Pittsburgh's going to have to shell out a lot of money to keep him, but Pittsburgh would be stupid not to keep that Bell, Brown, and Big Ben combination going. So that's my top 10. Fournette, McCoy, Gurley, Freeman, Gordon, Blunt, Murray, Elliott, Johnson, Bell. Simple as that. Those are my top 10 running backs going into this season. I said I was going to do a top 10 wide receiver with the Philly Knights. I've been working a lot. Unfortunately, I can't do it. I'm currently working on... I'm going to rank all 32 NFL quarterbacks from all the teams. All the way from 32 to number 1. Simple as that. And it's going to take a while because, there's so many quarterbacks. Okay, there's so many quarterbacks, and who knows who's going to start, who knows what's going to happen. So on that note, go Philly Knights. Those are my top 10 running backs, and go Birds.